Hello there and welcome to Sanga Studios. It's been quite a long time since I've done a video. I'm sorry about that. I've been a bit busy with stuff. But I wanted to show you something today which is a kind of MIDI microtonal composition tool for turning MIDI data into microtonal information. I made an organ, a microtonal organ clone a year or two ago, which I'll put a video up here, I guess. I don't know where it comes out, up here. And you can watch that if you want to. And recently somebody got in touch with me about that and said, have you been working any more on it? And I have, but I hadn't got around to doing a video, so here it is. If you enjoy it, like and subscribe and all of that stuff. So, I'm going to talk you through it. I'm going to go over to my whiteboard, which I have here. It's actually, well, a blackboard. It's digital anyway. So let's start by what MIDI usually does in simple terms. So I'm going to draw here, oh, it's quite a fat brush, never mind, a MIDI keyboard. I only need one octave really. And here are the black notes, put them in like that. Okay, so this represents a MIDI controller keyboard. And this MIDI controller keyboard sends information down a MIDI connection, and then you hear a note. And a little bit confusingly, I'm going to represent the note you hear with another keyboard. So this keyboard represents not a physical keyboard, but a fake instrument like a digital piano or something. So this represents the sound of a piano, not the actual playing of a keyboard. So usually what happens with MIDI, let's change to a different color, is that when you press, for example, a C, this information comes down the pipe, down the MIDI connection, into the software or hardware instrument that understands MIDI, and it says, oh, that's a C, I'll play a C. Bong. I don't have perfect pitch. That probably wasn't a C. And if you press a C sharp, same thing happens all the way down here. Bong. And you get a note that corresponds with the one you play. That's what MIDI does. It's usually restricted to these 12 notes per octave and each one a semitone apart. But if you want to make microtonal music, it can be a bit of a challenge with MIDI. So let's take those off. And I'm going to, let's see, I'm going to erase this. Like this. Let's get rid of this keyboard. I like that first one. I'm going to keep it and get rid of this MIDI connection. Now, what you can do sometimes is retune every note of the virtual piano to a different note. And some pieces of software and hardware make that quite easy. Some of them make it really difficult and you've got to go diving into menus, and it's a pain if you want to retune it and so on. So I wanted to have something in the middle. I'm going to make it, oh, whoa, don't want to do that, hang on. I want to make it blue, so to represent newness and technology. Here we go, and I'm going to call this a MIDI translator. Let's make the brush a bit smaller to write translator. So, and the idea is that when you play a MIDI note, it will go through the MIDI translator, which will tune it somehow and come out the other end. One way to do this, which is the way I've used, there's various different possible ways you could do this, but the way I've done it is that when you play these notes, the MIDI translator splits them off into different channels. And each channel has the same instrument on it. So instead of one virtual piano playing every note from this one controller keyboard on the left, you would have, for example, here's exactly the same thing. I'm drawing it smaller because I need to fit more on the screen. But there we go. There is one virtual piano, and here's another virtual piano, which I'll do like this. It's all going a bit wonky, doesn't matter. And one more virtual piano at the top. Now let's imagine that, for the sake of argument, there are 12 of these, but I'll only draw 3. So let's say there are 12, one for each note that happens up here. So for example, C would be rerouted by the MIDI translator to channel 1. C sharp would be rerouted by the MIDI translator to channel 2, and so on. It's also worth pointing out that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Channel 10 is often reserved for drums, and sometimes the virtual instrument makes it really hard to get around that. So I've just made this avoid channel 10. So it goes channel 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 11, 12, 13, I guess. So it misses channel 10. So the 12 channels are mapped like that. So let's say, once again, let's go back to this color. You press a C down. This time the information, the MIDI information, goes into the translator. The translator says, ooh, that is a C. I'm going to reroute that C down here to channel 1 and play it down here. C sharp, C sharp, eh? I'm going to reroute that C sharp. Go on, I'll draw the dotted line in again, even though it's going to get confusing, to channel 2 and play the C sharp here. And the D can go all the way up here, through the MIDI translator and up there to the D. Okay, so all the C's at the moment can go through the translator and appear, all of the C's on channel 1. And then one way that it's very easy to change the pitch over the whole keyboard is to add pitch bend information. So here in the MIDI translator, it can say, for example, you might want to leave all the C's alone, so there's no pitch bend at all, so all the C's come out here. The D's, or the C sharps, you might think, actually I'd prefer these C sharps to be a bit sharper than the usual C sharps. I'll represent pitch bend with green. So somewhere in the MIDI translator, it will pitch up this channel so that it's a bit higher than usual. So this ends up being a slightly sharp, so all the C sharps are a bit sharp. And the Ds, you might think, I prefer the Ds to be a little bit flat. I like a nice flat whole tone. So it would go down a bit there. So then all of these Ds are a bit flat. And then because this is the same instrument on channels 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and so on all the way up, when they're recombined, it sounds like one instrument. So particularly on instruments like pianos, for example, this would just sound like one piano, except it would be virtually tuned. And then here, I wanted to make it very easy to, in the MIDI translator in the middle, to select different tunings and pitch things up and down. Now, the next thing you can do, of course, is if you wanted more than 12 notes. So what the other thing the MIDI translator does is, let's say there are 24 notes on in your scale, and you've mapped them in your mind to over 2 octaves. So there's 12 notes per octave, but you want quarter tones, for example. All of these notes, if there's a C and a C sharp and they come through here, at the moment the MIDI translator will map them both to C. You can't play them at the same time, but when there's a C there'll be no pitch bend. If you play a C sharp, it'll bend the pitch up a bit, perhaps, and come out of the same channel. So at the moment this is limited to a bit like an old clavichord which is fretted. So some of the notes coming out will actually share some of the notes going in, but only if they're closer together than a semitone. It's quite rare that you want 2 notes closer than a semitone played simultaneously, so I thought that was not a bad trade-off, really. The other way to do this would be to have them going to more more than one set of 12 channels. And then that would depend on the instrument you're using as to whether that's possible or not. So I thought I'd keep it simple for the time being. Okay, let's have a look and see if we can get it working. So you're probably wondering, how on earth am I going to demonstrate this without a keyboard? Well, I'll show you, because I've made myself a little custom keyboard drawer here on the cheap. Ta-da! And there we go. Here's my ancient Edirol controller keyboard. Now, you can see on the screen that there is a kind of grey, very boring looking thing with numbers all over it. That is a representation of this keyboard. And if I play notes on here, you can see so you can see the notes appearing on the thing up there as I'm playing them on the keyboard down here. Okay, so let's show you a little bit of what this does. You can see there's some menus at the top here. There's the sound font menu, so you can load a new sound font, and you can change the MIDI program of the sound font. I won't change that at the moment because I think it might affect how this is recorded, so I'm going to leave it set up as it is. You can load tunings, which take the form of text files, and you can do various things with the MIDI, like transpose or transpose the octave. This is in fact a microtonal tuning right now, or it's a just intonation tuning. So it might not be... Don't know if my ears are good enough to hear this as being different from a Western tuning. But if I play a chord that doesn't work, you'll hear that it's out of tune. So that's a D major, which sounds a lot worse than the C major. F major, fine. G major, no problem. E flat major's okay, but then you get to these ones. Ew, ghastly. The way these notes are written at the moment, you can see at the bottom, 1 1 1 3 5 3 3 1 3 5. These are what I call Wilson style ratios. You can also display them as part style ratios. So this is a part style ratio, so that would be 1 over 1, 16 over 15, 9 over 8, 6 over 5, 5 over 4, and so on. These are frequency ratios of just intervals. Sometimes it makes more sense to have them Parch style. Sometimes it might make sense to have them as a Wilson style ratio. So if I load a different tuning, let's go to Wilson 9. I think that's an interesting one. Yes, this is an interesting one because you can see that as Parch ratios, we've got 135 over 128, 315 over 256. These are difficult numbers to consider. But if I put them as Wilson ratios, you can see the prime factor content of the ratios more easily. Oh, the other interesting thing about this tuning system is that it actually goes over 16 notes. So the octaves are here, and then the next one up is an E, and the next one is an A flat, and then finally back to the C at the top. I'll play a chromatic scale. To the top, so it's quite fun, really. A Harry Parch style tuning. I don't think it's all of the notes, I can't remember, but oh, I missed it, there we go. There's the top note. So that's one octave, and you can see how much of the keyboard that takes up. But this probably isn't so useful for playing. go, so that's a major triad. But it might be quite useful for trying out different kinds of third, for example. I might actually just pitch this up an octave again. There we go. So there's 1/3. It's a minor third. Two different kinds of minor thirds. That's a kind of halfway between a minor third and a tone, 7/6. That's a kind of whole tone. It's another kind of whole tone. Yet another kind of whole tone. And then we're getting into semitone imagery. And that's an example of what I said before about two notes sharing. They're closer than a semitone, so you can't actually play them together. And in fact, where's my octave? If I play the bottom note, and I play that one up there, you can hear the bottom note bending upwards. Oh, and downwards. Yeah. So that's one of the idiosyncrasies of this. This one actually, it is a part style one, but I've just noticed there are no 11s in there, and 11s are good fun actually. Have I made one with 11s? So this gives you some nice parch intervals to play with, like the 11th, which you don't hear in Western music. I think that's lovely. Anyway, that's kind of what it is and how it works. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please like this video and subscribe and so on, and I'll do my best to make some more fun videos in the near future. Sorry about the hiatus, and see you again soon. Goodbye.